At 1:30 this afternoon, a ship, the Nova Garcia, tried to pass under the Huey P. Long Bridge with its loading masts up. The steel booms slammed into the main span. They hit with such force it caused the road to buckle 4 feet into the air. Mary Janson was working under the bridge just a few feet from what is now twisted metal. A half hour after the accident, her hands still shake.
We just seen the ship passing underneath us, and then we start hearing all kind of noises, like the deck caving and stuff like that. I don't know, I'm just so shaken up right now, I don't know what to say.
Fortunately, nobody was injured. That was due in part to a driver of one of those trucks who stopped and immediately halted traffic.
I blew the horn, the truck in front of me stopped, and I blew the horn so the guy behind me would stop. Then after I threw the truck in neutral and pulled the brakes, I jumped out so the lady in the next lane wouldn't go across the bridge.
If you hadn't helped her, what would have happened, do you think?
Well, she might have went off over in the bridge. If she didn't go, she might have got stuck on the top of the bridge.
Ed Garland, who was bridge manager here for 42 years, says he's never seen the bridge suffer this much damage. He says it will take at least 2 weeks to repair the Huey P. Long. Bill Mahler, News Scene 8.
All right. Thank you, Ron.
If you've been food shopping lately, you may have noticed a few changes in the checkout line. Bill Muller went shopping and he tells us what's new at the supermarket.
Grocery shopping has never really been much of an adventure, but these days you really never know who you're going to run into.
148.
Who said that?
137.
That's right, a talking cash register, the latest in high-tech shopping. Their monotone voices spit out the prices as fast as the checker can check.
52.
So why a talking cash register?
Well, you don't have to watch the cashier as much. You can just listen to the computer.
Last time I came, as a matter of fact, she made a mistake on it, and I caught it because it was talking. Otherwise, I wouldn't have caught it.
These talking computers are fine for snapping out orders and prices, but is there a heart behind that cold, impersonal brown plastic cover?
372. 112.
You been working here long?
269.
Hey, did anybody ever tell you had a nice voice?
159. 148. 112. 75. 166. 53.
Boy, I sure got the cold shoulder. So much for computer dating. Bill Mahler, News Scene 8.
149.
That Bill Muller's a smooth talker himself.
Yes, well, we know that for sure now, don't we?
Absolutely.
That's News Scene 8.
Though there are some signs of improvement, generally the economy is in tragic shape. And the bad side effect of a rise in the number of cases of child abuse goes along with it. There are more cases being reported now than ever before. Bill Mahler's been on the story all day. Bill, tell us about the problem.
Ron, a typical case might go something like this. A father, unemployed, returns home after spending the entire day looking for work. It's a hot day, the air conditioner may not work, his wife might be having problems. He's under stress, the entire family is under stress. He loses control, the child might be crying, and the father lashes out at the child. Or another situation, a family cannot support itself any longer on its budget. The parents have to look for work. They leave the child home, maybe with a bag of potato chips to eat all day long. Cases like this happen hundreds of times a month in New Orleans. Most cases, in fact, go unreported. The New Orleans Police Department and the Child Protection Center are getting more calls now than ever before, and 1/3 of the cases that are investigated result in investigators finding that the child was near death. 5 children died last year. Already 5 have died this year in only 6 months. Really, whether it's neglect or actual abuse itself, these are scars that are left on the children for their entire lives.
Bill, do you think we're getting a handle on the problem?
We really are not. Sergeant Daigle, who runs the Child Abuse Center for the New Orleans Police Department, says that they are only scratching the surface. That's why, really, it is so important for citizens of the community, neighbors and friends of people, to report even a suspected case of child abuse. Ron, you know, most people don't even realize it is a crime if cases go unreported. That is even a suspected case of child abuse. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to get involved. Many calls are anonymous, but as our civic duty, we should be turning in more of these cases because the police department and the Child Protection Center handle everything else, the prosecution if necessary, all the investigation, and the correction of the problem.
But has anyone ever actually been arrested for not reporting a case?
Well, we've had that as a law for several years, but in fact nobody's been arrested or sent to jail. It's nearly impossible to prosecute. Finding evidence is next to nil. But if nothing else, as human beings, we should be reporting these cases. I'll have a full report, by the way, Ron, coming up tonight at 6.
All right, Bill, we'll have more at 6 o'clock. In Lebanon, Israeli... Though ABC News reports the captain of the flight was told about severe weather in the area, did an air controller violate federal regulations by withholding other critical information about wind shears? Bill Mahler has been working on that story all day. He's in the newsroom now. Bill, there have been reports the rules were broken and this might have contributed to the cause of the crash.
Ron, that's exactly what a consumer group is saying, an aviation consumer group out of Washington. They're talking about that today. But the people I spoke with, representatives of the National Transportation Safety Board, say simply that is untrue. It has been reported that there were wind shears around the airport at the time that Flight 759 took off Friday afternoon last week. The air traffic controller's manual does state that the tower will inform the pilot about specific wind conditions after a wind shear alert. And if the pilot on that Pan Am flight was not given that subsequent information, which, by the way, has not yet been determined, it is still not necessarily a breach of the rules because there are exceptions.
Most of the regulations also say that if there is more pressing business or there are other things going on, so we'd have to see what the conditions, how many planes are being handled, and other conditions at the time.
So there are priorities that they're acting under which we may not yet know.
That's great. There are all the priorities, and we have to see what those priorities were before we can indicate what the conditions were about this.
And we still do not yet know what those conditions might have been. That part of the investigation is expected to be wrapped up probably early next week. Ron?
Well, Bill, the question that many people continue to ask is if the pilot knew there were wind shears, why did he take off?
Just because there are wind shears in the area does not necessarily mean that the pilot cannot take off, that the plane is trapped on the runway. It has been reported that the pilot was told that a wind shear that had existed in the airspace into which he was about to fly no longer existed. But still, it is just too premature to be drawing any conclusions about what was said or was not said between the tower and the pilot. There are a lot of tapes of the conversations between the cockpit and the tower that have yet to be listened to.
All right, Bill, thank you very much. And cleanup at the site of the crash nearly complete right now.
We are constantly being bombarded with economic statistics from the government. There's the Consumer Price Index, this seasonally adjusted inflation rate. Today, wholesale prices. But for you and me, what do all these numbers really mean? Today, wholesale prices came out. Does that really mean anything to you?
No. It really doesn't.
Does that really mean anything to you?
Not really.
What does that mean to you?
What is it?
To many of us, these intangible statistics have no real meaning. What's on the consumer's mind is something a lot more down to earth.
I'm interested in saving on my groceries. Yeah.
But economists say the figures from the government can help us save on those groceries and anything else we buy. For example, today's wholesale price report can tell these shoppers how much that can of beans may cost next month.
That can give him some idea of what he thinks is going to happen to inflation in the future, and then to the extent that he is an investor, a saver and an investor or a borrower, what's going to happen to inflation in the future can be important to him.
Government figures can also tell us if the people we elected are doing the job they promised. So the next time you hear one of the government's price indexes, don't just shrug your shoulders. That information can help. Bill Mahler, News Scene 8.
All day. Bill, tell us about the problem.
Ron, a typical case might go something like this. A father, unemployed, returns home after spending the entire day looking for work. It's a hot day, the air conditioner may not work, his wife might be having problems. He's under stress, the entire family is under stress. He loses control, the child might be crying, and the father lashes out at the child. Or another situation, a family cannot support itself any longer on its budget. The parents have to look for work. They leave the child home, maybe with a bag of potato chips to eat all day long. Cases like this happen hundreds of times a month in New Orleans. Most cases, in fact, go unreported. The New Orleans Police Department and the Child Protection Center are getting more calls now than ever before, and 1/3 of the cases that are investigated result in investigators finding that the child was near death. Wilmot and Evelyn Miller are two of 7,500 Louisianans who did not like what they got in the mail last week. It was a notice from Blue Cross announcing premiums were about to go up and benefits drop. On May 1st, the Millers' payments will jump from $154 to $259 each month. The deductible will soar from $200 to $5,000, and their major medical coverage will drop $30,000. For the Millers, that notice was devastating. She has a serious heart condition. His circulation is bad. They can't get Medicare because they're not old enough.
Oh, they're telling me that they don't want my business. That's what they're telling me. I mean, they're telling, and if they do it to all people that's like us, that's a little high risk to them, I think it's rotten.
We are sympathetic, but it's something that we had to do. We had been paying on some of these contracts $100 for every $10 we were collecting. It was just something we had to do.
What can be done? Right now, really nothing. But if people are going to complain, they might as well complain where it might do some good to their state representatives or senators. For if there is any change, it'll have to come from the Louisiana legislature. Bill Mahler, News Scene 8. Jazz, America's only original art form. It began right here in New Orleans, of course. In fact, where would the city be without it? You say you know all about that? Well, why are you sitting there watching television? Tonight, the city is alive with music. This is the weekend New Orleans revels in its heritage. The Jazz Festival is in full swing, along with the Tulane Hot Jazz Classic. There they were, lined up under the sign that said doll sale. Some had been here more than 2 hours. They came because of a simple 2-line newspaper ad. The rare and expensive Madame Alexander dolls had arrived. How much are they going to cost you?
Probably $175.
Is that right?
Right. One. A 21-inch doll. They only have one, and I'm number one, and I'm going to get her today.
This is the doll Judy has her eye on, Scarlett O'Hara. As the crowd pressed behind the door, Julie walked right up and bought her Scarlett. The doors then flew open, and pandemonium.
Wait, a few in, huh?
The people in this room are perhaps a little smarter and more athletically gifted than most of us, but those two qualities alone do not necessarily make you a successful person. As most people here will tell you, the real formula for success is simply the desire to have it. Bill Mahler, News Scene 8.
Tonight, the getaway car recovered after last night's police shootings and Election Day in Plaquemine Parish.
This is News Scene 8.
New leads tonight in the shooting of 2 New Orleans police officers. The patrolmen were wounded last night outside a convenience store in a very tough section of Algiers. They were answering a call about a suspicious person. All night, police were looking for this car, stolen at gunpoint by the suspect as he fled the scene. It was found this morning, parked in the Fisher Housing Project. It was immediately dusted for prints. Blood was found on handles and upholstery, and samples were taken. They're now being analyzed. It was just before 6:30. His partner, Officer Bouvier, shot once in the chest, underwent surgery last night. Tonight, he is in fair condition. And police think that the suspect may also be wounded. They are looking for a black man in his late teens or early 20s, last seen wearing a long black coat. He also may be carrying a .38 caliber revolver. In St. Gabriel, Louisiana, they're drinking the water again. The faucets have been dry for 3 days after an anonymous caller warned deadly cyanide gas had been injected into the system. It turned out to be a hoax. But in the last 24 hours, 2 other towns have received the same threat, Abbeville and Delcombe.
The Sheriff's Office received a call yesterday evening about 8:40. This is very similar to the situation in, I think it's St. Gabriel.
It was St. Gabriel, where for 3 days the tap water has flowed pink, the traces of a chemical dye being used to flush the community's entire water system. Finally, late this afternoon, the all clear was given after engineers. President Reagan spoke out against abortion today on this, the 10th anniversary of the Supreme Court ruling making abortion legal. In Baton Rouge and around the country, both pro- and anti-abortion forces were taking to the streets. At the state capitol, groups opposed to abortion were protesting the landmark decision. The same thing was happening in Washington, D.C.
An estimated 26,000.
Though there is some troubling news about our economy that we'll hear in a moment, the region's employment picture looks a little brighter today, especially in the shipbuilding industry. Yesterday, Avondale announced a new multi-million-dollar contract, and today, in Pascagoula, there was a large ceremony at the Ingalls shipbuilding yard. Today, the Navy christened what it's calling the world's most sophisticated warship, the first of several to be built here. Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger was the main speaker, and some of the Navy's top brass was also there to christen the USS Ticonderoga. More bad news, though, for the river parishes in the state. GHR Energy Corporation at Good Hope laid off about 300 workers yesterday, and it's cutting back its operations. Spokesmen for the refinery say that the plant's major refining and production units are shut down for this weekend, and for now, any plans of expanding GHR are on hold. Construction has stopped, and company officials have not decided when normal operations will resume. Right now, about 1,400 employees are still on the payroll at Good Hope Refinery. And in St. Bernard Parish, more layoffs. The police jury's tight new budget called for cutbacks in the parish road department. 15 workers were laid off yesterday. The parish will lay off at least 10 more employees as well, trying to adjust to a $13.1 million operating budget for this year. Officials are promising that they will rehire the workers that they are laying off if the financial picture in St. Bernard is able to turn around. Nancy has an unbeatable combination for tomorrow, sunny and dry. That forecast is next. There's a lot of treacherous weather all around Louisiana the last few days, but we're getting out with sunshine and dry sky.
Terrific news. All the bad weather is moving out of our section of the country and now beginning to hit much of the east. But sunshine's going to be back in the forecast for tomorrow, and I know everybody's going to be glad to see that. Our satellite view, though, across... Then a bit cooler on Tuesday. Warmer on Tuesday and warmer than that on Wednesday. So a warming trend.
Okay.
You got it? Warmer each day.
How about the Mardi Gras forecast? Come on, go out on a limb. I want to hear what that's going to be.
Bill, come on now. I wouldn't even attempt that.
We're getting calls already. They want to know.
We have problems with tomorrow and the following day. That's 2 weeks away.
At least.
At least.
Thanks very much, Nancy. The needy, the hungry, the homeless, for them, Christmas 1982 offers a handout. More than 2 million Americans are said to be homeless. 11 million have no work. Sociologist Father Joseph Fichter calls this hard luck Christmas of 1982 the worst since the Depression.
If we were a poor nation, I would understand why people are suffering from malnutrition. But we're not. We're the wealthiest nation in the world. We simply have to have a conscience to translate that wealth to the people who need it.
The Gaines family knows about need. They have no home, no money. The Travelers Aid Society has become a substitute home. They have found shelter in the Baptist Mission. They are together only when they walk the streets looking for work.
And we can't even eat together now, you know. They separate you at 4 o'clock and you eat at 6, and they're on the 6th floor and I'm on the 3rd floor. When you're at the end of the rope, you're at the end of the rope. You know, all you can do is just hang on and exist, you know. There's no way to get the car fixed. There's no way to pick up money, you know. Staying at a mission, you know, is not the answer.
If we had a place to stay and a job, I'd be tickled to death. As long as we could be together. I don't care if it's one room, as long as we're all together. Because that's what Christmas means to me.
11-year-old Joseph says he understands why there will be no presents or Christmas tree this year.
This is the hardest time of my life, I'd say. I don't know about my baby brother Michael, but to me, if I had one wish, the only thing I'd wish was for my whole family just to be in one place with a roof over our head, clothes on our backs, and food in our mouth.
Bill Mahler, News Scene 8. The all-American drink, a tall, cool glass of milk fresh out of the refrigerator. Well, consider this. Here is a sample of UHT milk, ultra-high temperature. You keep it in the cupboard, not the refrigerator, and it stays fresh for months. UHT is grade A all the way. The only difference is in the processing and packaging. It has all the same vitamins, it looks the same, and it does taste the same as regular milk, but you've got to remember to chill it first. Well, it sounds like great stuff, but will anybody really drink it? The idea of downing a nice, warm box of milk may tend to curdle the stomach a bit.
Well, it sounds like a practical idea, but I don't know about yummy.
No, I don't think. No, give me my regular milk.
No. Why not?
Well, because I like the fresh milk.
This will be fresh.
Yeah, I know, but I don't like that type of product. I much rather the fresh milk.
Yuck.
If it's comparable, if it has the same content, it'd be worthwhile to try and see.
This product violates some of the beliefs held by the consumers. This product is the real thing, does not have preservatives, but does not need refrigeration. And that is going to be the major problem to overcome.
The dairy cooperative that distributes UHT milk knows it's going to be tough to wean these milk customers from the refrigerator section. It is already selling well in Florida and Georgia, but that does not mean it will be accepted when it's introduced here in Louisiana later next year. Bill Mahler, News Scene 8. We are constantly being bombarded with economic statistics from the government. There's the Consumer Price Index, this seasonally adjusted inflation rate, today wholesale prices. But for you and me, what do all these numbers really mean? Today wholesale prices came out. Does that really mean anything to you?
No. It really doesn't.
Does that really mean anything to you?
Not really.
What does that mean to you?
What is it?
To many of us, these intangible statistics have no real meaning. What's on the consumer's mind is something a lot more down to earth.
I'm interested in saving on my groceries. Yeah.
But economists say the figures from the government can help us save on those groceries and anything else we buy. For example, today's wholesale price report can tell these shoppers how much that can of beans may cost next month.
That can give him some idea of what he thinks is going to happen to inflation in the future, and then